maintenance is required for this mechanical ventilation? Because it's all very well at the start. 50 years down the line, this is still going to be working.
There'll be filter replacements, and the filters will be oversized to lengthen the interval between filter replacements. So I'm hoping that the filter replacement can be roughly biannual, so once every 2 years, and you're recommended to have a gas safety inspection every year in the UK. So I think once every 2 years for filters is
we use a standard system, and we recommend to our clients to go in a loft and pull them out every 6 months and just check them.
Yes.
But most of them just don't even bother. That's the problem.
Well, it's all very well blaming them, but
yes, well, I think it's going to have to become part of the
You're
the
going to get
law,
like the Legionnaire's disease.
like gas safety inspections,
Yeah.
because I think gas safety inspections ought to be mandatory for owner-occupied buildings. Because while I built this, I rented a house with an LPG central heating system, and the 25-year-old boiler did develop a tiny metal fatigue crack, and I hadn't noticed it, and the safety inspector noticed this crack and condemned the boiler and said to the landlords,
Big notice on it.
could you replace this boiler fairly quickly, please, because it's developed this crack, and it was absolutely minute. It almost needed a magnifying glass, and I hadn't noticed it.
But it's mandatory for let properties, right? If you rent
yes,
it, if you
it's mandatory for rented property.
But it's weird it's not for.
I think owner-occupiers deserve the same protection from themselves in many cases.
Yes.
Because it
all costs money, so it's easy to say, we won't do that.
You certainly shouldn't be allowed to sell a house without proof that you've had an annual safety inspection of a gas heating system. They're not expensive nowadays because there are plenty of people doing them, and I think they're 25 to 50 quid each.
Yeah, we put heat and smoke detectors in as, that's the law.
Yes.
We don't put carbon monoxide, which we should do. People die on carbon monoxide all the time.
Well, it is kind of building regs, isn't it? To put a carbon monoxide detector.
You do install solid fuel lines, you do have to.
Solid fuel.
Yeah.
One of the advantages of having the
only over a certain kilo.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs. I know if it's a solid fuel.
But if you have a boiler, you need. I thought you needed one, or is that just?
I don't think.
Some people say you should have one.
It's good practice.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be very swaying on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the advantages of having a house where the boiler can go in the utility room or somewhere not in the house itself is that if there was a leak, it's going to have less effect on the inhabitants. But most UK dwellings are so cramped that you're going to have the boiler in the kitchen. Yeah, I think it has to become mandatory.
Yeah, we're getting houses failing on the SAP rating because we're putting heat recovery in because it's electrically operated.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
We did a load of properties in Cheltenham.
So what do you do then?
Took it out, couldn't put it in.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's actually mad. Although
it's just crazy.
The SAP thing is weird. I don't.
It's not.
It's perverse.
Have you had
that's the best.
I mean, did you have to have a SAP here for building regs? Did you do one, or
under new regs?
Did you start long enough?
I started long enough ago that
you missed that.
I'm exempt from the EPC, but I'll have to have a SAP. We'll probably have a laugh about it when I said.
Well, you can be passive house certified. It's left out a SAP. It's insane.
Yes.
Who do you use for your passive certification? Have you got anybody?
I haven't actually had it certified because it costs money, and
I've got a guy in London. It's only young guy.
I spent the money on better construction.
I'll introduce you to.
And in my view, the certification is important where you're going to sell or maybe let a house. But if it's an owner-occupied self-build, I don't see the point.
Have you run it through the passive house, the planning package?
Oh yeah.
And that's where you've got your
that's where
calculations.
I got all the calculations from. It was done
right
long ago in PHPP, and I've got the file which I can tweak if I want to see how how it would perform, say, with a different insulation material in the walls, if someone else was building a similar house now. But I think the lessons are that if you use about this much insulation, it's probably about the right amount if you're heating with a fuel like LPG or oil. And I think you can make a good case that the measures in this house are going to give a reasonable return compared to those fuels. Another aspect of the house which might interest you is that almost all the floor is made from waste material. It's kitchen worktop offcuts. There is if you look closely, there is a pattern to symmetry to it.
Yes.
Well, what have you underneath the structure, David, insulation-wise?
This has got 200 millimetres of high density mineral fibre slab as floor insulation. I had some issues with that manufacturer. It wasn't Rockwell or Knapp, don't worry.
No.
But the manufacturer they were sending out material which didn't meet the specifications by a mile. And
The crazy thing is we use Celotex for everything over here, and yet
Yes.
in Sweden that's banned.
so there's polyisocyanurate is banned.
Yeah,
Why?
because of the gases it gives off. So it's the same as treatment of wood.
Banned from buildings.
Yeah, you don't build with it.
Well, even from concrete buildings or
Well, this is in timber frames,
yes.
and
Yeah, I can see that they might be worried about the gases given off during a fire because apparently I was told by an insurer that they have a lot of
no, they claim it's the gases because you you blow it to
yes.
and it's those gases that
So the
start
manufacture process.
as soon as it's finished and it's manufactured, put it in, you start to
I was thinking
get gas. It's the same as treating timber. They don't treat timber because I said, what's the point? Because if you're treating something,
That's right. In Sweden and North America,
yeah.
treated timber is no timber frame house has treated timber in it,
No.
except the thing in Louisiana they had to treat some of it against termites.
Termite, yeah. It's the same in Cornwall, and then you go down to Camberley and around there you've got Death Watch.
Yes, you've got in certain parts of Surrey and Hampshire, you've got
Yeah.
the beetles which aren't found anywhere else in the UK,
They love wood.
but they love Surrey and Hampshire.
Yeah. They've got expensive taste.
Yes, very expensive taste. They only live in Surrey and Hampshire.
Actually, it's funny you should say that. My sister had a house built in Surrey, and she had a timber fence, and it fell down after 3 years.
Yeah, they're ferocious.
Due to
Really, it's a big problem.
being eaten by beetles.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. You
Shoot.
go
An
for
area for all timber frame houses as well. I'm not that
that's
familiar with the
all timber frames have to go through. So if you go through building regs, which you do.
No, I meant ancient.
Oh, I don't know.
Sorry,
I don't know.
Yeah. You know, where you would have
Yeah,
Death
yeah.
Watch beetle.
Yeah, I say Death Watch beetle. It's a beetle, but
Yeah,
it's
a wood boring
just
things.
eats timber.
Okay, we've got
Used to
Tile.
wire or something, maybe.
tile, let's
So
call it
it's
a
not
tile.
light, dry
Underneath the
area,
tile
right?
is a screen. Underneath the screen is 200 millimeters of insulation. Underneath that is reinforced concrete.
The concrete is above the insulation.
Concrete is above the insulation.
Yes.
So the concrete, then screen, then this.
Yeah, concrete screeds stone. And if I'd known that I was using uniform stone slabs, I would have just power floated the floor and used tile adhesive, but I left space for recycled slabs because I didn't know what I was using at the time the slab was poured.
It is a bit cool underfoot. This thing.
Yes, the
Where's your underfoot heating?
Carpet.
well,
You come from South Africa.
I think
This is Britain.
I'll take
We're
my
used to it.
shoes off and experience
We're
it.
slipping.
I think the issues are I'd used the company which supplied my substandard floor insulation. It's a long story and I'm going to write it up in a book. And
You got patches.
it actually had to have some remedial work carried out on it, this floor. It's a real pain.
When we first visited, you said that the ambient temperature was probably 3 degrees less than it should be due to that. Is that true?
Yeah,
More or less?
I think the internal air temperature in this house is about 3 degrees less than it, without heating, than it should be as a result of the defective insulation suppliers, 3 of them. I had a remarkable saga of 3 suppliers of insulation materials which did not comply with the specification.
There you go, Greg.
And you only found out later? Was it you only found out later after the materials were in use, had been in use?
No, I knew with 2 of them that the material was not up to specification, and with the floor insulation they supplied a replacement which later proved to be not up to specification. It was unbelievable.
So if it had been thicker, would it have done the trick, or just a different material, or different air content?
Oh, if you're building a similar house again, do a raft foundation and rest it on expanded polystyrene. It's
That's exactly what we do.
it's a loss.
We do a 35 Newton concrete.
It was discouraged at the time, but
Bring the insulation up and around.
Yeah.
Looking
And
at the wall.
it's just the standard. Again, I saw it in Sweden. You try to get it through builder regs. That one down at National Forest, builder regs, zero building. You put that in front of them and left it.
yeah, it's increasingly common to do this in certified pattern house buildings.
You have to get it through where a normal build